Welcome back, everybody, to another review. Terrell and Nadia here for the Mandalorian Season 3. And what a wonderful season it's been so far as we come back to our favorite Mandalorian and his quest to get rebaptized. Uh, on episode 3, The Convert, this picks right back off as we left with Din Djarin and Bo-Katan as they get baptized in the lake of Minnetonka, as Prince would say, the waters of Mandalore, as he tries to get back into the way of his they don't want to say religion, but their clan.
Gang,
Um,
gang.
yeah, so he is desperate to get back into get himself bathed in these waters as they go through this mission. And we pick right back off as Bo comes in and saves him, rescues, and we have a little glimpse of she sees a image that we see for quite a second, which was the crest of her people, her family. Before we even get into anything else, what did you think about this whole scene and her diving in to get him in that whole image of like what we got in the water there?
Yeah, it was interesting because Bo-Katan has been like the anti Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And to do this, I think she acted without understanding what could be deemed as the consequences here. But honestly, the reward, and I think that just shows the level of respect that she has for Din, and I think that ultimately we're seeing more about the inner conflict that she's having. Because I mean, listen, she's isolated by herself, really doesn't want to be bothered. She gets pulled onto this mission, she gets made a believer, and then she instantly realizes that her quest and maybe her significance to the Mandalorian is bigger than she ever could imagine. I think this was a lot. This episode, even though it wasn't a lot of with Bo-Katan, it really was a lot about her. It was really a lot about just this new chapter, this new page that she's turning in terms of her beliefs and what she thought, what she thought wasn't what is, and what she, and just how big things are. It's way beyond what she can imagine here.
Yeah, like you said, this episode really kind of fill in more of the blanks, man. She's beginning a lot of like lore. Like if you jump in from some of the Clone War stuff to some of the Rebel stuff that we've seen, she's beginning a lot of backstory and a lot of lore. And we get to see a lot of the repercussions of Din winning the Darksaber and kind of what that did to her. Because like is when we pick back up on her, she's kind of lost everything. We the crew that she was rolling with, they're like, we don't really respect you. You got to win this through combat. Which is kind of weird because like with her not really believing in the way like that, what does it matter? Like what does it matter? If you take it off of him dead or alive, or if he just gives it to you like he was initially trying to do. He's like, yeah, I don't want it. She's like, nah, you beat me. Here you go. And pretty much the Darksaber is signifies that you're kind of the leader of this, of the kind of the Mandalorians, even though he still can't handle it. But like I say, you see her kind of her castle of isolation, just like, look, I just want to be left alone. I don't got nothing. I'm trying to chill. Which, how are you surviving out there, by the way? It wasn't like nobody, but we see them kind of pick right back up. Like, okay, let's go. Let's get out of here. And as soon as they get back up to leave, we see these pirates come in and start chasing down Bo because apparently she stole the ship that she shouldn't have took. And we see them fight them off, which was an amazing battle, by the way. Very, very excellent CG. And everything from the entire Disney team, everybody that does that, want to give you your credit. It looks amazing. They do an amazing job of that whole dogfight here, because that's majority of Star Wars, right? Just these plane battles, these dogfights, everything like that. We see them just bomb her house, her family's house, and she's like, well, what do I do next? What did you kind of think in that scene, like as they kind of bombed her, and this was like the last remaining thing that she really had at that point?
I thought it was metaphorical. Because she has felt alone. She felt like she didn't have anybody. And I think that her seeing everything blow up was really that in her face of saying, like, you really don't have anybody, you don't have anything, but yet you have a lot. You just fail to accept it. And I think even in her complacency of, I'll just go back home. Okay, I did you this solid. I'll just go back home now. This was like, no, this isn't the way. But in fact, you belong to more, and you even have means to restore your family's name here. You have a lot of potential legacy within your hands if you just realize that the scope of what you do is bigger than this isolation, even this mindset of defeat. It seems like she has, and failure. So I think that the it blowing up was one, petty, by them saying, if we're gonna leave, we're gonna leave a mark real quick.
Right.
And then it was obviously her saying, listen, this isolation, this what you think is a home isn't. But we have a plan for you. And it's just cool to kind of see really self-contained her story. And again, this was almost an hour episode, and what we're talking about fills up about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes of this entire episode. This was the cookie part of the Oreo here, you know, in terms of Bo-Katan. So yeah,
like I said, I'm not sure if the plan is to kind of give her own thing going forward, but like I said, I mean,
they'll spin off everything. So
I just don't want to see another Boba Fett happen. You know what I mean? The most popular character, just but I think she obviously she has way more backstory and a lot more lore and everything, character development than Boba Fett will ever have in his entire 40-year run. And that's not a shade at Boba Fett. He's just boring, man. But just jumping back into that, they pretty much gotta get out of there after that. So the first thing is let's hit this jump to hyperspace, and then Den says, hey, I know a spot, and then we completely just cut away to the other story, or I guess our A story here in the episode, which
it's really the now this is the feeling of it. Let's finish talking about Bo-Katan before we talk about that, because it is two different stories happening at the same time. Because it's way. I'm not gonna say that the continuity don't exist, but they're two different episodes in one episode here.
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of just referencing back to the Boba Fett thing. This is how the Boba Fett stuff was running. How when they did that, it was like, okay, we're cutting to the Mandalorian. I'm like, okay, so like you said, it's two episodes within one. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's just so much that they setting up for Bo in this season that we see alone. And I mean, this is what her third consecutive episode that we've seen her. We got her season 1 for like 5 hot seconds. Was she into? I really don't remember as much. But yeah, like I said, we're building up so much, and I wonder if she'll take back that Darksaber. I don't think so.
I mean, it's obviously that at some point we have to see her wielding it in a way, and it's going to be a matter of conflict, because understanding that she has it and becomes the ruler of Mandalore, it's a story in its own. But again, it's hard to tell where she stands, because I didn't want to jump the gun, but I guess we'll just get there. But once they return, and we see that when she sees the other Mandalorians, and they're kind of like, okay, what are you guys doing here? You're disgraced. You're definitely disgraced. What they call her, Night Owl. Yeah, you're definitely disgraced. But they said, listen, we didn't been baptized in Jerusalem. we're back, and we brought the holy water here. And it's just like, okay, prove it. And obviously the armorer confirms it there. And with that gives Bo-Katan, I mean, it gives her the quick essay or the quiz and say, well, have you taken your helmet off since? No. And you took a bath too? Yeah. Well, you're in. This is the way. And what's important about this, and I may be skipping a few things here, is that look that we get when everybody sort of just comes around and like and accepts her, and she becomes family. And yeah, she has a helmet, but we can see the expression that she's kind of looking like, wow, like for years my family and even my beliefs have always been exiled, and now I'm accepted, and I have family, and I even have I have a role, I have potential here. I think that moment of staring is just a moment of shock, yet almost disbelief that she could fit in somewhere. And I think that's going to be telling, because now that you have somebody who now has family, who has home, but ultimately her mind is still thinking like, I want to rule Mandalore. Right. I need that dark saber here. So it's just interesting to see where she's going to go from this. And it's interesting because you know, the feud between the dark sabers is at the crop of it, but what matters more, the ideal of ruling or family, and being or just being a team, you know, with Den and hitting the road all the time. You know, there's hope there and purpose for her there, you know.
Yeah, like you said, that was something that she'd been looking for since we were initially introduced to her. She explains her history with the Mandalorian and how her family was outcast, yada yada yada. And like you said, you know, it's an testament to the acting here at how good it is that you can see the emotes through the helmets. And just you can see her, you know, probably just cheesing it up as they're all putting their hand on her shoulder, like, "Hey, welcome back." You know, you see the one guy in the back probably just steaming, like, "Nah, okay." You know what I mean? So, you know, but you know, it's good thing on Den, man, because like, you know, she was like, "Look, I can attest for you. You don't," you know, he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna grab this water real quick," because you see him stop and grab a little sample of water, like, "Nah, I know how these people are. I'm gonna have to get a little something to prove it," which was smart on him. I didn't even think about that till you said something. Like, okay, why did he stop and grab the water if she was just going to vouch for him anyway? Which it didn't even matter. But yeah, like I said, man, so much set up for them, and we only on episode 3 of this season. There's just so much that we probably gonna get out of her before this season is in. Hopefully, some Jedis.
I mean, obviously, that's what everybody's waiting for about a trailer, you know. And, and what's interesting, because I'm gonna hijack this review real quick, is while we are waiting for the one thing that everybody loves about Star Wars is lightsabers, you know, and Grogu with a lightsaber is going to break the internet if that happens. Just FYI.
I don't think you're ready for that.
Just FYI. I don't think nobody's ready for that. This is that has potential to be one of the most craziest days in terms of memes and TikToks and everything. We see Grogu with a lightsaber, but we know the lightsabers and Jedis are coming by the trailer, and I'm going to guess it's going to be the second to last episode of the season, because you might as well hold that big thing out for the end. But what's interesting about this episode is this episode feels very, 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 very familiar to something I thought was super good, and that's Andor. This felt like an Andor episode, which is why I felt like it paced the way it did, which is why it was the length it did. And if it had not had, again, the cookie part of the Oreo, it would have absolutely blinked and said, "What series is this? Is it Andor or is the Mandalorian?" Okay, cool. But I loved Andor, and I love the idea of getting stories that
boots to the ground, like seeing what the other people that's not wielding powers are doing, like the day-to-day, you know,
we'll just call it the average Joes, you know, the middle class folks, you know, because yes, when you talk about the Mandalorian, it's a space western. Right. But when you get to this is spy espionage, and this is one of the most popular genres in all of media. You know, when you talk about the 007s, when you talk about the Mission Impossible, when you talk about the Bourne franchise, you're talking about these things that just continue, Jack Ryan's, all these things that people continue to invest in season and movie after movie after movie. And that has not truly been a lot of Star Wars, but when Star Wars do it, they do it well. They do it very, very well. Again, Rogue One is my favorite of all of Star Wars anything. And then right after that, you know, besides Rebels and Clone Wars, will have to be, I mean, The Mandalorian is easily their best show, but I mean, which ones that really called to me? Andor is fantastic. And I love this episode because, again, as you said, it's an eye into stories that you didn't know you wanted until you got it. And you're like, damn, that was good. And I'm just going to give it right back to you, but I'm just going to say one thing. This Penn guy, I don't care what type of redemption they were trying to give him in this episode. We all remember what you did to Grogu. You tortured that little guy, and no one's ever going to forget that. So, good riddance for being double crossed at the end of this, dog. I don't
Tough.
care what you tried to do, what your hope for good, and all the affirmations everybody gave you. We, as the viewers, all know what you did to Grogu, and you will not be forgiven until you give Grogu a hug and tell him sorry.
Oh, yeah, man, it sucks because, like I said, we jump right into, you know, what, you know, Penn's story and like where he was, and we found out that the Republic has this pretty much um amnesty program that they give for people that work for the Empire. You know, they were forced, some were forced, and some were, willing to do it, but they're given this amnesty program to change. And, hey, we're giving you housing, we're giving you a new job. And they give him all this, and he comes out, and we see him make his speech about his forced labor to the Empire, yada yada yada. And he's like, he wants to continue his goal towards cloning because he feels like it could be used in the right, in the right hands. It could be used for the right reasons. But as we found out, the Republic is like, nah, we ain't messing with that. Like we see the dangers of what cloning has caused. We not ready for that just yet. But for some reason, he just cannot shake that. His life right now is just incomplete, right? Like, he can't. He feels oppressed by the Republic, which is two sides of the same coin, right? Like one side is like, okay, we're doing this by force, and the other side is like, okay, we're kind of doing the same thing, but we're doing it for freedom. And there is like, okay, what's the difference at this point? You know what I mean? You got a couple people that's like, well, the Empire, which are the Nazis, Nazi regime, basically. Like, I didn't want to do it, but what did you think so far, just on his journey coming back into this, and were you kind of feeling bad for his whole situation, despite what you just said about him torturing Grogu?
I mean, I tried. I honestly tried, and I again, it was interesting because they did not make this shallow at all. They continue to add depth to this redemption story of his and wanting to do good, and obviously you want to get the ramifications if he's able to succeed with his plans. And obviously there's a very connecting factor to this story because he was essentially told to just shut up and do your job. Don't try to innovate. Don't try to do anything out of your scope of your duties. And I think there's brilliant folks who work regular jobs who don't get opportunities to do the things they know they can do because their supervision tell them, no, we don't want you to do anything out of the norm. So I think like there's a relatable factor to the character and to the story here. But ultimately, in the scope of Star Wars, you think like, well, what does this mean? What does this one bit of science and research? What does this change? And so it's intriguing. It's definitely intriguing. I think when we think about holes and gaps of stories we didn't know about and how certain things got to certain places. What was the name of the Star Wars animated series that just came out? The one that had like 5 or 6 episodes.
Bad Batch?
No, right before that. The one where they had baby Ahsoka for the first episode.
Like Jedi Stories or
yeah, there's something like that. Yeah. But like that was fantastic because that was starting to tap into so many little stories that you did not know. How did that get discovered? How did the people know about that? There's so many little things that's happened. So now you think that like if Star Wars is really and with John in the scope of saying we want to make sure that there's no plot holes, you start to think, well, what are you trying to get at with this story right here? So like the antennas are up because you're anticipating like what's next, what's going to happen. And then we get a major cameo. We go to Coruscant, where it's just like, okay, this is interesting. A very iconic place, and a place we've seen numerous times over. So it's just a lot of intrigue on what the story was going to do, just for him to get double crossed at the end and tortured, and it's like karma. And then back to Grogu in the crew.
I mean, I can't tell if he, obviously he legitly did want to do this. He did, from our perspective, he wanted to continue this research because he felt like the medical means of it outweighed the alliance, or I can't forget what them saying, hey, no, don't do this. Even though it's like, the one guy was like, look, man, just do your job. And he's like, look, they're decommissioning all this good.
Just like Andor,
Right.
like Andor's. Do your job, sit at your desk and do your job, and do nothing more. So,
yeah, like I said, just so many setups here, and we see, like, that one scene where we have a couple of the other amnesty program guys all sitting around thinking about, hey, what do you miss, what do you remember, what do you want, and they all exchange the stories like, oh, not being a terrorist, but what do you miss about your day-to-day job, because they're still regular people, just happen to be on the wrong side of this losing battle that took at least 30 years, like 20 25 30. And he's like, apparently he missed the biscuits still on the ship, so of course we get the scene where he gets a knock on the door and he gets these magic Empire biscuits that apparently taste like heaven.
Yeah.
What do you think at that point in the episode that was the bait to kind of get to see where he was? Because there was no indication that there was going to be a double cross to me. I thought she was on board the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought. Absolutely, I thought, okay, vigilante, as well. It was never, even the part where they jumped off the train and kind of looked at each other. I said I felt like that moment was like telling, and I thought, like, okay, maybe it was a moment of like, okay, we're doing this.
Right.
But when we talk about the cookies here, I think it was just nothing but like, what was I thinking when I thought that? First, I was thinking like, okay, this is definitely a selling factor, that like, I got the plug, bro. Like,
right.
Yeah, like if you had any doubts, look, I got the plug. We can do this or whatnot. But this never was an indication. It wasn't even a hint that I thought was a double cross. Even though I was suspicious when they got off the train by that look, and there was awkward pauses, and I think he was hesitant the entire time because he just couldn't believe what was happening. But what would it be without a good twist? And she manipulated other people later too by saying like, oh, that's my friend, I want to see this out, and then turns up the juice on the electric chair on him.
Yeah, we'll probably never see him again.
Yeah, I mean, it's cruel, but ultimately this says this erases his memory, and that's obviously a loss in terms of the potential here. Or is it? We have to we have to see what happens. It's interesting, but
I mean, obviously, I don't know if his research is solely in his mind alone, because they still get out of there with the lab equipment, which she just casually just takes and walks off with. Yeah, I'm sure they took it. You know what I mean? Yeah. He say, hey, he's like, how much would you need? He's like, well, we don't really need that much. We could do X, Y, Z. Yeah. So they go in there. So I just don't really understand the point of baiting him into that. If there was other means to do it, but or did she? Do we not know that she actually works for somebody else?
Yeah, I got a good guess. Moff Gideon. I think I think that this is all a plan of just saying that, like, I can bring you back intel,
right? Because they did say that he got low, like he got out, or like so we'll see him at some point.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, ooh.
I mean, yeah, he got obviously, but that means he must be like locked up somewhere. But either way, this is going to be valuable information, and obviously, puts Kane in favor of Moff, which is obviously a good thing, So,
like you were saying about Andor, man, I love episodes like this, like you said, where these aren't 2-hour movies anymore. These are like 8 to 9 hour TV shows where we could take an episode and do 45, 50 minutes to an hour and focus on a particular sector that makes this whole situation whole. And I think that's what Andor definitely makes going into Rogue One that much more special. It gives it like definitely more heart. So like, I mean, it hurts a little bit more because where it's going at the end of that. But to see, like, especially with Rogue One being the Star Wars movie where we actually, like you said, see the boots on the ground and actually see this war, and how we see like the bodies on the ground getting tossed, not just a bunch of laser swords and and blasters, but we actually see the people that sacrifice and make this all happen. And like I said, they do a pretty good job at it. But this episode is pretty dope, man. Like, it sucks that he got. I'm glad that we got more lore on the Mandalorian stuff. I'm glad that my man finally got rebaptized in the waters, so we can finally stop hearing him crying that he want to get this back again. I guess we'll never see Pedro's face again in this show going forward. Did you did you have any thoughts on just kind of the wrapping up of this? And I mean, as we cut back to, as we already talked about them saying that they are back in the fold, this is the way, and Bo being brought back into this family that she thought she lost.
Yeah, I mean, would it be safe to say that we don't also see her face as well too for the rest of it as well?
Yeah, maybe on the sneak on the ship. I feel like they've gone over kind of like how their day-to-day routine works, and like the eating and all the stuff like that, and just the daily. We don't really got to get into all that, but yeah, just I feel like she was pretty adamant about not doing it, but maybe she'll stick to it this time. Keep mask on. So,
and obviously this saves the budget and allows them to film other things.
Right, when we just get a body double, we just have you voice.
Which is easy money for them.
Yeah,
but
great.
Coruscant, it was cool to see Coruscant, and I just think that like cameos like that, seeing these worlds that we've been familiar with for all over, which is I think the last time we've seen. This is obviously one of the most game changing moments in all of the Skywalker saga is episode 3. So that was the birth of Vader, but essentially the death of other folks that we really liked as well too. Everybody, obviously. So it's just interesting to be able to go back to the world and kind of see what's up. So
yeah, man. Every time they show Coruscant, it's always at a different perspective, a different angle. Like I mean, they talk about the decommissioning of the Empire ships, and a whole just having all that extra material stuff just going to waste, which is crazy. Like, why wouldn't you use your enemy's tech? You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see like just that a little bit more world building and Star Wars as a whole, man. Like, and just to see how these TV shows have continuously keep growing the franchise. I mean, if they never go back to movies, I wouldn't be mad, but they gotta come with some story, you know what I mean? But I love that we get to fill in the gaps here and all the stuff that's just untouched.
Right.
And the Mandalorian, this is great. But like I said, great episode. Episode 3, The Convert. Shout out to my man Penn for trying to get his cloning thing going again, but it sucks, man. Shut the torture, Grogu. Any last words on that?
That's it, man. We'll be back for episode 4 next week.
Yes, sir. See you guys next time. Terrell and Najee, and like I said, we'll be back for episode 4. See it. Peace forever.